Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from the Korman Productions Deep Dive TV podcast. My co-host Stacie here to talk about Flight of the Navigator. Happy 4th of July, everyone.
Happy 4th.
Yes, and the reason we're picking this movie is because this movie actually takes place on the 4th of July. It's a pretty flimsy reason to cover this movie, but nevertheless...
There is something there.
Yes. The movie's description reads as follows. In 1978, a boy travels 8 years into the future and has an adventure with an intelligent, wise-cracking alien ship. And the movie is based on a story by Mark H. Baker. He wrote the original script. It started off as a script titled Banished, with a screenplay by Michael Burton and Phil Johnneau. Burton has 4 writing credits, including Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Johnneau has 37 directorial credits and 6 writing credits. The movie was directed by Randall Kaiser, 37 stints including Grease, The Blue Lagoon, and Big Top Pee-wee. Before going any further, I'll tell you a couple things. One, this is not a spoiler-free podcast, so if you haven't watched the episode, I highly recommend you go check it out. And then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on the platforms that this podcast is available on, please follow and feel free to check out our YouTube channel, Korman Productions, where additional content can be discovered. If you're already on our YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, and subscribe to the channel. Alright, so Stacie, your thoughts on this week's movie.
Alright, so this is a kind of a cult classic. It's definitely something I think everyone our age has seen at some point in their life.
I mean, this is literally my childhood, right?
Yeah. And again, like a lot of the movies we've covered recently, this is one I hadn't seen in quite a long time. I definitely watched it multiple times when I was a kid, which has been a long time since I revisited it, and watching it to take these notes. In some parts, it was almost like it's something I've never seen before,
right, because
I was so distanced from it. But my reaction watching it this time around kind of was, this movie is less than I remember it being.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a whole lot of content.
Right.
Like, all of the beats that I remembered are there.
Yes.
But there's not a lot of stuff between them that I was missing. I'm thinking, I don't remember so much, but really, it's just not there. It's not that deep of a movie.
It's a refreshingly simplistic plot.
Right.
It's definitely uncomplicated compared to a lot of the kids' movies that occur today. That's for sure.
Right.
This actually is in the same vein of movies like Explorers. I don't know if you watched that movie. It's like a sci-fi friendly film of the type that I don't think they even make anymore. But yeah, it's definitely a very uncomplicated plot, to the point where, like, after a certain point, I'm like, what am I even writing notes about at this point? Like, they're just basically, like, arguing and looking for directions.
Yeah, it's just like there's a lot of comedy.
The strongest part of this movie is probably right up until he actually is on the spaceship, and after that, it basically is like looking for directions and wisecracking and all that stuff. Like the best part of this movie, I think, is like in the first half of the movie. Before that,
it's funny because it's Flight of the Navigator. Like, in my brain, it's about the flight.
Yes,
and then that is actually such a small part of it.
That's
overall.
Like the last half hour of the movie.
Yeah, and I'm like, we're finally getting into it, and I'm like, wait, we're almost done.
Right, yes.
It's like nothing really happens here. Mm-hmm. It's just almost over already.
Yeah.
Which confused me, because I was like, but no, like, more stuff happens, doesn't it? No, It doesn't.
Like, I remember some of the iconic moments, like the rooftop scene where he's preparing to set off the fireworks.
Mm-hmm.
I have a clear memory of that. Of like the wisecracking spaceship and all these little tiny things, but the beats themselves in between all that, I had very vague memories of that at best.
Right.
But I mean, this was literally this movie came out in 1986. I don't know if I watched it right off, but I definitely saw it when I was a kid.
Yeah, I probably would have seen it later.
Yeah.
I would have been 3 turning 4 when this movie came out. Mm-hmm. So I was probably a little young for it.
Right.
Or at least to understand it at that point.
Yeah.
But it's a Disney release.
Yep.
So it makes sense that it's child-friendly and simplistic.
Yeah, but Disney doesn't even produce movies like this anymore.
Right.
Like, anything Disney is, like, complicated. It has a super complicated plot. From a a pacing standpoint, this is very slow compared to something you would get this day and age.
Right.
I will say that the score is iconic. It's a great score. I distinctly can hear the Flight of the Navigator theme in my head, and like a lot of the effects still hold up. Like a lot of it was done practically because using computer effects at the time was not something that was totally common. But yeah, they hold up to today's effects.
Oh yeah, and it's a good movie. It was fun to revisit it.
Yeah.
It's just like I said, there's less of it than I remember there being.
Yep. I mean, I guess it's kind of like that thing where like when you're a kid, you're standing in a field and you're looking at something and it looks huge, and then you stand in that same field and it's like, wow, that's really smaller compared to what I remember. I think it's the same deal in this type of movie. But yeah, do we have anything else to say before diving in?
Well, let's go for it.
All right. The film begins with what appears to be a flying saucer, but as it turns out, it's just a frisbee that dogs are catching.
It's a silver frisbee. And we do a lot of that in the first, 10 minutes of this, where they're like, this movie is about a spaceship, so we're going to tease you that every single thing we show you is a spaceship. Yep. And it's not.
And it's really the South Florida dog frisbee competition that the main character's dog is not actually participating in.
Yeah, they're just kind of playing frisbee on the side of the competition, and the date is July 4th, 1978.
And the main character, David Freeman, is trying to play frisbee outside of the competition with his old dog, Bruiser.
His young dog.
Young dog.
That's important.
Yes. Not cooperating is the dog, and David is played by Joey Kramer, 14 credits for him. He didn't act for almost 25 years after 1996, but has some credits in the last couple of years. He was actually in 2 episodes of Murder, She Wrote. So I noted this absence. There was a credit 9 years after his last credit, and then there was a 25-year gap in his resume, and I'm like, what's the deal with this? Why was he out of acting for so long? And as it turns out, I happened upon a documentary called Life After the Navigator that was produced in 2020. And it basically, I read the description, and of course it was about, the making of this movie, but it was also about the life of Joey Kramer. So I figured, okay, I'm going to watch this because then I'll get the answer to that question.
Right.
And as it turns out, he was, he got into some drugs, and he was involved in a bank robbery, and he was actually in and out of jail. And the film, in addition to detailing some of the behind-the-scenes stuff of this movie, also detailed him coming back from drugs and what led to that in the first place. And he mentions in the documentary that he wanted to get back into acting. He hadn't yet done that yet. This was actually before those credits started appearing. He wanted to use that as a means of self-expression and keeping himself away from drugs. So the fact that he has those credits after this movie came out is really an inspirational kind of deal.
Right.
Because it means that Joey Kramer overcame all these things. I highly recommend you go and watch this documentary. Some of the things I bring in, like the fact that this started off as a script titled Banished, is actually from this documentary. So yeah.
Okay. And he was most recently in the 12-Step Strangler.
Yes, which seems to be like an Alcoholics Anonymous serial killer or something like that.
I'm not sure.
It's I saw that credit, and it's an interesting theme movie given the fact that what his struggles were. All right,
and we also meet in this scene his family.
Yep.
We're gonna go through them now.
Yeah. His mother Helen, father Bill, and little brother Jeff. Helen is played by Veronica Cartwright. 159 credits for her, including a 4-episode stint on The X-Files, The Witches of Eastwick, and the original Alien movie.
He was also in 1 episode of The Good Doctor, 5 episodes of Resurrection, 5 episodes of Invasion, and an episode of Sliders.
Yes.
Lots of things I'm familiar with that she's been in.
Bill is played by Cliff DeYoung, 139 credits, including an episode of The X-Files, the first episode, an episode of The West Wing, and Harsh Realm, which Carla Mack appeared in the pilot episode of that.
Oh, okay. Yes. Cliff DeYoung was also in 4 episodes of Jag, 3 episodes of Melrose Place, an episode of Star Trek DS9. And in addition to all of this acting, he was actually the lead singer of a rock band in the 60s called Clear Light.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was a musician before becoming an actor.
Young Jeff is played by Albie Whitaker with one acting credit, but also has an appearance in Life After the Navigator, the documentary I was just talking about.
Yeah, he never got into acting, I guess.
Also interesting to note that in addition to Joey Kramer, the other people that were up for the role were Jacqueline Phoenix and Chris O'Donnell, who, of course, would go on to play Robin in two of the Batman movies.
Do you mean Joaquin Phoenix?
That is who I mean, yes.
Okay, I was like, I don't know what you said.
Okay.
Joey Kramer in this always reminded me of Fred Savage.
Yes, he does,
and I remember
he does have that resemblance.
Being a very young child completely mixing that up and thinking they were the same person.
They are not. So Jeff naturally antagonizes his brother, and in the middle of it, there's a shadow over them, and it turns out to be a blimp. This is another fake-out moment.
It's a Goodyear blimp that passes overhead.
Mm-hmm. Jeff continues to annoy David, and naturally David gets blamed for it. Jeff gets out of the car to play with some friends, and David insults him on the way out. And it's just kind of funny to me, because this is the first instance of parenting that would not happen this day and age.
Right. It's 1986. No, it's 1978 at this point.
Yep.
A very different era.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, it would have been something my parents might have done in my childhood, but definitely not something that takes place nowadays.
Yeah.
Just dropping your kid off randomly.
He's 8 years old.
Yes.
And we're going to learn later it's about a mile away, through the woods, over railroad tracks.
Right.
And they're just like, be home before dark.
Right.
So yeah, Jeff's getting out of the car at Billy's house to play with the kids there. Dad tells him to watch out for fireworks. That's all the parenting is. Yeah, don't die in the fireworks.
Pretty much. That's exactly how parenting was back in the day.
And one of the things they were, that he was teasing David about in the car was that David has a crush on Jennifer Bradley.
Oh, yeah. So, David still gets home, and Jennifer drives by in a bicycle. And basically, Jennifer is played by Carrie Rogers. Also only has one other credit, which is, of course, Life After the Navigator. And in that, she actually talks about how she was basically just off camera being pushed by somebody. It looks like she's actually been riding this entire time, but she's being pushed just off camera past.
Why is that? Does she not know how to ride a bike?
I don't know, but that is what she said.
So it turns out he does have a crush on Jennifer, but he doesn't know how to talk to her, and he does a really creepy thing next.
Yeah, David runs upstairs with some food, despite his mom warning him that they're going to go out and get some food. He's never going to get to eat that anyway, I don't think. David ends up spying on Jennifer with his telescope from his window. He's caught by his dad. David thinks talking to girls is impossible. His dad suggests just to learn by doing, which is, pretty good advice, actually. At night, his mom sends him to get Jeff. David's annoyed because he's 8 years old and should be able to walk back by himself.
Right, he's like, Mom, he's 8 years old. Right. He can handle it.
Right. Again, very different era. David goes over the train tracks into the woods. Bruiser seems to be reacting to something. There's another fake out as he sees a tower.
It's a water tower.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't get that note.
It's a water tower, and he's like they make us think he's looking at you. If nope, it's a water tower.
Right. He talks to his dad about his 12-year-old problems.
His dog. Talks to his dog. Dad's not there.
Right.
This would have been a really different story if Dad was in the woods.
Yeah. He hears something in the woods. It spooks him. He crawls through the woods. Jeff jumps out from a tree, scaring the crap out of him. He ends up going after Bruiser, who's barking at something. But as he looks down the cliff, he ends up falling down it and seemingly gets knocked unconscious.
Yeah, and, on first view, he fell down in the woods, and he gets up a minute later. That's all that happened.
Right. He awakens and calls for his dog, but doesn't find it. He crosses back over the tracks again. Interesting note from the documentary. This shot was not Joey Kramer, but his stand-in, who was a woman named Rosie.
Okay.
Yeah. He goes home and knocks on his door, where he finds it locked. But an older lady answers the door, and they are both confused. She thinks he's lost. He's wondering why strangers are in his house. He runs in and finds another old man, but no family. Best guess here is this is Mrs. and Mrs. Howard.
Yes.
She's played by Iris Acker. 11 credits, including Cocoon, The Return, and she died on September 16th, 2018 at the age of 88.
She was also in 2 episodes of Wise Guy.
And that means she did not participate in the documentary. And he is played by
Richard
Liberty. 16 credits for him, including Porky's 2, Just Cause. He died on October 2nd, 2000. He was also not in the documentary.
He was also in Day of the Dead.
So he's cornered on the stairs and cries for his mom and dad. Mr. Howard calls the police, and he is now taken to the police station. Detective Banks asks him if he's hungry. He's played by Raymond Fortune. 79 credits for him, including Point Break, the original one, an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, and an episode of Shameless.
He also was in 1 episode of Better Things and 2 episodes of Good Trouble. We also have in this scene, there's a newscast playing. And it's talking about how there were citywide blackouts for an unknown reason. So him being returned apparently caused blackouts, I think, is the insinuation here.
We actually learn what happened.
Why there's blackouts?
Yes. The spaceship crashed into something and caused the blackouts.
Okay. Yep. So the newscaster is Peter Lindquist. His only other credit is the 1990 film Look Who's Toxic.
So his partner shows him some missing persons info matching David's description. But the only thing is, it's from 8 years ago. So Banks' partner is very skeptical that it's him. But Banks suggests driving to the parents and seeing what happens.
Yeah, he's like, it must be a typo. And she's like, well, no, it's from 1978. This kid's been missing for 8 years.
Right,
and
so he should be 20 now and not 12.
Yeah. This woman officer is how she's credited. She's played by Cynthia Caquelin. 4 total credits, including 2 episodes of Miami Vice.
Okay, so they take him to see his parents. His partner asks him some questions, which indicate for them, that it's July 4th, 1978, and the president is Jimmy Carter. They pull up to the house, and Detective Banks knocks on the door. David is confused, but as Banks talks to the parents, David realizes that it is his parents. He runs out of the car. His dad's face registers shock, and both of his parents are noticeably older. They're fawning over him, and he ends up fainting. Now, the actor, Raymond Fortune, in the documentary states that this is his favorite favorite moment that he filmed. It was the most meaningful, and it really connected with him.
And note, Bruiser is also there. The dog that was once young is now an old dog, but still with the family.
How long do dogs live, usually?
Yeah, 8 to 10 years is right. Which the first time watching this, during this prep, I was like, how, that's unrealistic, the dog's still alive. But then on second watch through, I did hear the line where he said to the dog in the beginning, like, oh, you're such a young dog, you wouldn't understand. So they did make a point of saying he was very young at the beginning.
Meanwhile, we meet Dr. Faraday, who's driving up to a discovered spaceship with noticeable damage all the way around. This is what caused the blackout. The ship is just floating right there. The cop asks Faraday how they managed that, and the doctor will only say it's a matter of national security. The real answer is that he didn't do any such thing.
Okay, so
Dr. Faraday is played by Howard Hesserman, 153 credits for him, including an episode of House. He was actually an elderly patient in this second season episode, Sex Kills, and 3 episodes of that 70s show, along with the movie Clue.
He was also in the 2009 Halloween 2 movie, 92 episodes of Head of the Class, and 89 episodes of WKRP in Cincinnati. Quite a long career for him.
Yep.
And the person who's telling him the information about the spaceship is Troy, played by Robert Small. He was in 2 episodes of Sequest 2032, Problem Child 2, and 4 episodes of Miami Vice.
All right.
And then the person who discovered the ship, this is the night watchman Braden. And Braden is played by Ted Barch. He was in Wild Things and 1 episode of Miami Vice. I take it this is filmed in the same place as Miami Vice, because that comes up in a lot of these people's credits.
David wakes up on a hospital gurney, being carted into a hospital room. He's freaking out. He wants to know why his parents look so old or why they wooed. parents don't have answers to his questions, but they are happy to see him. They ask him where he's been all this time, and then he sees his now 16-year-old brother Jeff, formerly his little brother. And I kind of wish they played with this a little bit more. The whole the little brother turning into the big brother thing while the other one doesn't age. Right. That's an intriguing idea that, how do you deal with that situation?
Right. Well, they didn't get much time to deal with it at all because they're going to be separated.
Right. He's played by Matt Adler, 43 credits for him, including Lex Luthor in an episode of Smallville, The Day After Tomorrow, and Teen Wolf. He's also credited as additional voices in El Camino. That's the Breaking Bad spin-off movie that details what happened to Jesse Pinkman after that series concluded.
Yeah, he actually has 35 ADR credits.
Yes.
So he made a whole career out of that, just doing voiceover. We also met in this scene Dr. Carr. This is David's doctor at this hospital. He's played by Jonathan Sanger. And he has 58 producer credits, including this movie. He's a producer on this film. He also produced some films such as Vanilla Sky. He produced the Mr. and Mrs. Smith series that Scott Bakula was in.
Oh, that's interesting.
And
not our only Quantum Leap connection in this movie either.
Yeah, we have an actual Quantum Leap connection, but this is a Scott Bakula connection. Mm-hmm. And he also has 21 director credits.
All right, so Jeff apologizes for jumping on a tree at him and scaring him. He both thinks it's rad that he's his big brother and is confused by the situation as well. Jeff gives him a missing persons poster, which he had to hang for years after his disappearance.
Every Saturday.
Yep. He says it's 1986, 8 years since that night. They exchanged the same childhood insults that we saw when he was dropped off, randomly at some random person's house. Back in the day. David admits to being scared, but his brother comforts him. His parents return. David wants to go home, but the doctors want to run some tests. And they all seem to leave, except for his mother. And David declares this to be like a bad dream. And I was actually kind of thinking through parts of this that this was just a bad dream. And I was thinking
it could be.
I was thinking that right up until almost the last moments of the movie, when it's kind of contradicted that it was just a dream. But we'll get there.
You mean when he sees the
creature?
The ship say goodbye?
Well, he also has the creature.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
But he could have just found it in the woods.
This alien creature?
If the Wizard of Oz was just a dream, this could be a dream.
All right. Meanwhile...
It's this very similar kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, were you just passed out this whole time?
Right.
Or did you actually have all these adventures? And we're left being like, oh, no, you actually had all these adventures. Mm-hmm. But... naysayers could say it wasn't real.
Right.
That's literally the plot of The Wizard of Oz,
Yeah. Meanwhile, we see the ship brought to a government lab on a big NASA truck.
It's being brought to a NASA hangar. I've got questions about this facility. We're going to end up very soon having, overnight stays here.
Right.
What is this place?
I don't know.
How many overnight visitors does NASA have? That they have a whole facility for it? Staff that cooks meals,
right.
This seems not in the normal wheelhouse for NASA.
No, there's definitely something else going on here. And by the way, I haven't mentioned this yet, but the look of the ship is iconic. It's definitely a very different looking ship than you would see.
It's not a saucer.
Right.
It is. I don't even know what to call the shape. And it changes shape. We see it morph shape during the movie, too.
And if you want to see more information about how the ship was created and all that, definitely check out that documentary. It's definitely worth checking out. So David sleeps. His radio plays distorted sounds. Jeff is by his bedside when he wakes up insisting a voice is calling him, but he can't explain what it's saying. David asks if he thinks he might be going crazy, and Jeff assures him that he's not, that it was just a bad dream, though when David lays back down, you can kind of see Jeff's face, and it definitely looks worried.
This is weird, right?
Yeah.
Your big brother that's been missing for 8 years came back. He hasn't aged a day. Maybe he's not crazy, but there's something about him.
Yeah.
But what he says is you're probably the only sane person in this place. Okay.
Are they at a mental hospital? I thought they were at a regular hospital.
I didn't understand that line.
Okay, so back at the silo, the scientists can't seem to get into the ship despite having tried everything.
And I ID'd one person in this scene.
Okay.
The one that Faraday's asking about getting into the ship is NASA technician number 1,
Okay.
played by Arnie Ross.
Okay.
He was in one episode of Miami Vice and the movie Piranha 2. I was able to pick him out based on his IMDb picture.
Gotcha.
But it gets really loose after that of who any of these people are.
Yeah, there's a lot of credits.
So we're going to have a lot of end credits at the end of our podcast to talk about, because there's a lot of people that work here, and I don't know who's who.
Right. Yeah, so Faraday insists they need to get in there somehow. David is taking some kind of lie detector test.
I don't think it was a lie detector test.
What was it exactly?
Like
It was measuring brain waves. Like...
Yeah, his head was hooked up to electrodes. That's not what a lie detector is. Lie detector is hooked to your hand.
But what is it doing? It's like...
It's I don't know.
Because it's
It's
like...
something to do with his brain, though.
Because the thing is like moving like the needle is moving like...
I don't know, but I know when you take a lie detector test, they don't hook it to your head.
Okay, fair enough.
They're doing medical science stuff.
Okay.
Secret science.
All right. He's asked questions about that night, but he starts communicating with a computer in binary, and the doctors are confused. A picture of the spaceship shows up on the screen. It's the very spaceship the doctors are examining. This is soon discovered by the scientists, who realize, basically they're giving a printout of the picture to Dr. Faraday.
Yeah, so it's sent to Dr. Faraday, and this is probably my biggest, what moment?
Right.
Who linked this kid in the hospital, who hasn't aged a day, to Dr. Faraday at NASA, who is investigating this ship?
Right.
Like, how was that connection made that we sent this to Faraday?
I don't know.
That's where I was like, I don't understand how these two things got linked together.
Are there, spies at the hospital or something?
It's just a hospital.
Right. But apparently David's the only sane one in there.
Right. So somebody just sent this picture over to Dr. Faraday. So somebody knew about the ship.
Who was at
the hospital. That was at the hospital.
I mean, maybe it was reported somehow. I don't know.
So Faraday comes to the hospital and is trying to convince David and the family to send him to NASA for further study. And Dr. Carr's there. He agrees that's what's best for him because they don't know what to do for him.
Right. David doesn't want to go. His parents are on his side. But Dr. Faraday argues his case. His dad is prepared to walk away, but Faraday continues arguing that they could discover the truth about what happened to him, and after that he can go home.
Yeah, they promise him they're only going to keep him for 48 hours, and David says he wants to do it, so the family agrees. Here's my question. As a parent, why wouldn't you insist at least one of you go with your child and accompany them for those 48 hours?
Yeah, I would do that.
Because Faraday's like, oh, he needs to be just alone with us, no distractions.
Right.
I'm pretty sure as a parent, your contingency to do this would be, well, he can come get tested for 48 hours, but one of us is coming with him.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that would be the law. I don't know how things work in 1986, but I don't think you could just take a minor away from their family.
I mean, you can if they agree to it. It's no different than going to summer camp, right?
And then conduct secret experiments on him. I'm sure that's...
Well, they consented to it.
I guess, but...
But I don't know why they consented to it. That's my problem, I guess.
I guess, yeah. So, as David is brought to the facility, he continues to hear voices. He's shown to his room. Dr. Faraday leaves him to it. David
and locks him in.
Right. David watches some TV, which is a very 80s thing. I think he's watching MTV or something.
He's watching a music video, which confuses him because they didn't have music videos when he left.
And he's interrupted by a robot that just, it's like this machine that just comes barreling into his room. And then he meets Carolyn McAdams, played by Sarah Jessica Parker. 67 credits for her, including Sex and the City, its spin-off, the movies, Mars Attacks, and Smart People.
Also of Hocus Pocus fame.
Yep.
And she was in the movie Footloose, which I didn't know.
Yes. That was the same year this movie came out, actually. So she introduces him to the robot, Ralph, robotic assistant labor facilitator. It brings mail, but also screws up.
And apparently it delivers food, because that's what it's doing for him. And that's what the guards who see it later assume, is that it's carrying food. And
Ralph is voiced by Corey Burton, who has a whopping 499 credits, a lot of voice work. In fact, I'm assuming all of it's voice work.
At least most of it.
Yeah. Including Wrecking Ralph 2, some Star Wars animated shows recently, and The Princess and the Frog.
Yeah, I noticed lots of Star Wars and other Disney properties, including the voice of Dale, of Chip and Dale.
Yes.
And he was the voice of Yen Sid, as well as other voices in the Kingdom Hearts games.
I'm going to point out the fact that Caroline is actually 20... Well, Sarah Jessica Parker at this point was 20 years old. I thought that by the end of the movie that she would come back into the picture as the 12-year-old version. What's interesting... They missed a trick on that one. But what's interesting is that was actually in the original script.
Was it?
She was actually supposed to be in the movie. And the one that played his crush was actually up for the role, but then they didn't include her in the movie. So that's
there was at one point where she calls him cute or something, and I'm like, oh, they're probably about the same age, aren't they? Like in real time. Yeah. That would have been good.
Yeah.
If we went back to her, because honestly, watching this to prep, I was like, she doesn't really have that big a role in this, does she?
No.
She delivers food and she's nice to him, and then she's kind of done. And I was like, I thought I remembered her having more to do in this movie.
Yeah. So Caroline asks him how he ended up there. He says it's a top secret. He finds out that Starchy and Hutch is off the air.
Yeah, she said it was canceled a long time ago. It was actually canceled in 1978, so
okay.
Quite a while ago.
Yeah. And she wonders where...
I'm sorry, 1979.
Okay. So a year after he disappeared.
Right.
And she wonders where he's been. Outer space? David thinks that's a distinct possibility, and that actually turns out to be the case.
mean, you work for NASA.
Right.
So that shouldn't feel like too much of a joke.
Right. And she says he's a weird kid. He fires back that he isn't the one with the purple hair. For a 12-year-old, he's got some game. She mentions the band that she went to see being Big Twisted Sister. She asks what she can get him on her way back, confuses him with the new Coke product, including bringing up new Coke, which was a thing that only existed in the early 80s.
Yeah, he says he wants a Big Mac, fries, and a Coke.
Yeah, and
which I don't think he's getting.
No, I don't think he is. David calls home
in the morning.
Yep.
Once he's unlocked from his room.
Right, and updates his parents and Jeff on what's going on. His dad gets on the phone and says he's fixing up his room for when he returns. And then they all say goodbye.
And Mom makes Faraday promise again that he'll be home in 48 hours.
Promise he's not going to keep.
Well, he does end up home though.
True,
but not by their wishes.
Right. Dr. Faraday runs some tests on David, and he's asked questions. The TV monitors end up lighting up. He's asked his name, and it shows up on the screen. When he's asked more questions, and then suddenly a bunch of info appears on the screen while David is sitting here confused, wondering what the heck is going on. It says he's been on Balin. And he could have traveled... Okay, so Dr. Faraday suggests that he could have traveled in space for 4 hours to Balin. Everyone else continued to age at the normal rate, but since he was traveling at light speed, David did not age those years.
Right, so basically David's brain is answering all these questions, even though David has no idea what's going on.
Right.
How far from Earth is Phalon? 560 light years. How long did it take you to get there? 2.2 solar hours, suggesting he was gone a total of 4.4 hours there and back.
And he's asked where Balin is. David doesn't know the answer, but it pops up on the screen anyway. We see this whole...
There's star charts popping up on the screen, and these are star charts that NASA doesn't know. It has no record of any of these galaxies that they're being shown. But apparently it all exists in David's little head.
Right. David finally has had enough, pulls off the little thing on his head, and runs off. And Dr. Faraday and everybody else just kind of lets him do it.
And Faraday says 48 hours will not be enough time.
Yes. Ralph returns with Caroline to David. He tells her he's going home tomorrow, but Caroline knows otherwise.
Yeah, she has the meal delivery schedule, and he's on it for the whole rest of the week.
And he starts freaking
And
out.
who are you delivering meals to?
Right.
Who do you have locked up in this facility? Is E.T. here somewhere?
I can imagine. What are they feeding him then? So he starts freaking out. She compares her situation to being an army brat. It's not the same thing at all. He quietly begs Caroline to help him, to contact his parents, to go see them. Caroline says she has to go back to work. She's saying that for the benefit of the people spying on them.
Right, so there's a two-way mirror. We have Observation Guard on the other side. He's played by Tony Tracy. 4 total credits, including 1 episode of Miami Vice. There's actually 2 guards in the room, and I'm not sure who the other one is, but This is definitely one of them.
So as she's leaving the room, she does a little spin and tells him, you're kind of cute. Did a girl ever tell you that? And David says, nobody but my mom, but she doesn't count. And David gives a smug, flirty face as she waves goodbye. Okay, you two, knock it off. This is very inappropriate. This is a 12-year-old. Sarah Jessica Parker, stop flirting with him. But yeah, I mean, it was this scene that made me think that she would return in the movie at the end.
She should have.
She should have, yeah. It was in the script.
Or even, this could have been the girl he had a crush on.
Right.
Why didn't we make these the same person?
I don't know.
And he's like, I know you.
Right.
This is weird.
Yeah, they missed a trick there. I'm not sure why they didn't go that direction, but it was in the script that she was going to be at the end of the movie as 12-year-old Caroline. David wakes up to the voices calling for him. Ralph enters, and he sneaks out in Ralph. And this security is awful.
So the Ralph robot comes in, and he, climbs inside of it. And it's going to take him to the hangar where the ship is.
He takes a ride in Ralph, and a guard lets the Ralph into the super secret, super duper security facility.
Yeah, to deliver food.
Good job,
or mail,
guards. Yeah.
Or whatever it's supposed to be doing. And it's basically a music montage as it's going across the campus. The very, 80s kind of here's a passage of time and cool stuff's happening.
Right. David makes his way into the area with the ship. A staircase forms out of the ship, and David climbs in.
Why is there nobody in this room?
The security here sucks. That's why.
I mean, last time we saw this ship, there were dozens of people working in this room, scientists and all this. Did they just give up?
I guess so.
There's not a single person working in this room, scientist or security.
Inside the ship is a bunch of reflective surfaces. There's all sorts of grooves as David slowly steps into and investigates. Suddenly, part of the ship lights up. A seat comes out of the ground, knocking him down into the seat. A thing lights up and calls him the Navigator.
It's funny. So this is the character of Max that we're meeting.
Yeah, we won't learn that till later.
He starts by talking to him in a bunch of different languages, telling him to sit down, and then finally settles on English because that's the one that David responds to.
Yeah.
But wasn't he already talking to him in English in the last scene when he told him to get inside of Ralph?
Yeah, I mean, David doesn't remember this, but Max would. Max would remember that he's already taken a flight with this dude.
Well, sure, but I mean, just in the last scene, it was Max's voice that told him, get inside Ralph and come see me. In English!
Right.
So why are we now trying to figure out what language to talk to him in?
So, by the way, the voice is played by Paul Reubens. 129 credits, most famous for being Pee Wee Herman in the show Pee Wee's Playhouse and assorted movies. The last time he played the role was in 2016. He got himself into some trouble. I'm not going to talk about exactly what.
Everybody knows what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I don't need to get into that. His show was actually canceled before that, so that was not the cause of the cancellation of the show. Paul Reubens had agreed to end the show after 5 seasons. It was, however, responsible for the show not being in syndication for a long, long time. So you could not actually watch the show unless you had, VHS tapes of the show for the longest time because of this incident. It didn't cause the cancellation of the show, but it did make it so that...
The culture cancel.
Right. It did make it so that you couldn't watch the show. Now, I see no evidence in looking through his credits that it had any kind of impact on his career because he continued to steadily work.
Oh, yeah, he has tons and tons of cartoon voice work under his belt.
And, today, what he did here, what caused the controversy would be considered tame. But he was also in Mystery Men and 3 episodes of Gotham, and he died in 2023. You have any other credits for him?
I don't.
Okay. Puppeteers in this movie include Tony Urbano, 5 acting credits, as well as 15 additional crew credits. He has credits in the Men in Black movies, Short Circuit, and The Abyss. Tim Blaney, 47 acting credits, including the voice of Johnny Five in the 2 Short Circuit movies. That's another piece of my childhood right there. I would be very interested in covering those movies at some point. And yeah, that's all I got. Do you have anything else in regards to that? Okay. So the ship, a.k.a. Max, tells David that he needs vectors that are in David's mind. And Max dramatically calls him the Navigator. The 2 guards realize what's going on, and finally, and sound the alarm.
And these are Hangar Guard 1 and 2.
Yes. And we see Dr. Faraday running, along with a lot of people. This is probably where we see...
Everybody, there's like a dozen people now all of a sudden paying attention.
I'm going to point out one specific person. That would be Julio Oscar Machizo.
Yes, that's Hangar Guard number 1.
Okay. He's our Quantum Leap connection, having appeared in the episode Last Dates Before an Execution that we covered. He was actually the person that...
He was the bad guy.
No, he wasn't.
Oh, he was the innocent one.
Yes.
Yeah. Raul.
Yep.
Yes. And I recognized him, even.
Oh, yeah? I never actually even saw him, but yeah.
Oh.
I just kind of figured that he was here. I didn't actually see him.
Yeah. He was definitely... That's how I knew for sure this was Hangar Guard 1 and Hangar Guard 2.
Gotcha.
He was also in an episode of Flash Forward, an episode of The Big Bang Theory, and 3 episodes of Invasion. And his partner in this scene, Hangar Guard 2, is played by Butch Raymond. He only has 3 credits, including the film Porky's.
So Max tells David that alien life forms are approaching. And David's like, what? Aliens are approaching? But he's disappointed when he realizes it's just human beings. That, from Max's perspective, would be aliens. Dr. Faraday tries to get him out of the ship, but David tells the ship to get him out of there and to blame itself so that he does not get into any kind of trouble. He's at this point more worried about getting into trouble than he is
about...
Well,
sure, because he escaped from his room, his locked room, and now he's inside a spaceship.
It kind of reminds me of... So, this is something I've never actually confessed to doing. Even
though
I'm pretty sure my parents are aware that I was in the car. But, yeah, when I was like about David's... actually a little bit younger, probably Jeff's age, 8 years old. I was playing around in my dad's truck on a hill. And I was, moving the shifter up and down, which I should not have been able to do without keys, by the way. But nevertheless, I was able to do it. The truck started rolling back. And I'm like, I put it back into park, thinking, okay, that'll stop it. But it didn't. It kept rolling. And at this point, I'm worried more about getting into trouble than I am about possibly dying because this truck is rolling down the hill. So I end up jumping out. And at this point, the truck is making noise, and my parents notice. And I'm like, look, there goes the truck. Like, I'm playing all this. The truck eventually crashes into a tree. And that's what stops it, thankfully. It could have been a lot worse. And, a neighbor comes out and is like, is this your truck? But, I mean, it's the same kind of deal. Like, you're in an alien spaceship, and you're worried about getting into trouble.
Right.
More than anything else.
Maybe you should be worried about what's going to happen with this alien.
Your priorities are a little bit mixed up. And by the way, I've never officially confessed that to my parents. I'm pretty sure they knew it was me. I was trying to be I'll pay for any damage. Like, I was acting really guilty. So they knew it was me. But I never actually officially confessed to, actually doing that.
Well, now you have.
Yeah, not unless they listen to this podcast.
Let's find out if your mom's listening.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, like I said, childhood perspectives and, what they're worried about. It's a little bit out of whack here. But, basically, he says, let's get out of here. Max says, compliant for the first time. That's an iconic line that he continually repeats.
Right. So basically, as far as Max is concerned, David's in charge right now. He's going to do anything David says. That's not going to last too long.
No.
But he's going to do exactly what David says. He calls all the shots, and it's pretty. It's really good cinematography.
Oh yeah,
the
absolutely.
ship elevates and like breaks free from the chains and breaks out of this hangar. That in itself, like, forget the space and the flying and all this stuff we're about to do later, but just the let's get out of this room part is impressive.
Yes. Max then asks if he would like to depart the hostile alien environment, and David says yes, and again Max says compliant. The ship then causes a bunch of havoc as it flies out of the hangar, with all the guards and scientists ending up outside looking on, along with Caroline. Max wants to go to Phelan, but David just wants to go home. David tells him to just go 20 miles away from there, and the ship goes 20 miles into space.
Straight up.
Okay, I'm going to ask, is it just 20 miles from the surface of the planet to space?
Well, he went 20 miles up. 20 miles is quite far.
That's into space, though?
I mean, yeah, planes fly at what? 5,000 feet?
Something like that.
That's 1 mile.
Okay. All right.
Right?
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Something like that?
Yeah.
There's some big rounding there, but...
Right.
Yeah, 20 miles is pretty far, I think.
Okay. And David's like, well, I didn't mean this. And then he says he meant on the ground. David asks to be taken back, and then he goes straight back to the same spot.
Well, everybody just kind of watches dumbfounded, not knowing how to even react to any of this.
Max calls this a third-class navigator move. David asks what's first class, and then the ship morphs and shoots off away from the facility, but still on the surface this time. And we see a bunch of rear projection effects, I'm sure, on as David watches on the screen. Max stops near some cows. Max demands, and this is 20 miles away, by the way. Max demands the charts, but David has to go to the bathroom first.
And we're just, like, in a pasture of cows, which is a really funny moment. The cows are mooing. Mm-hmm. Max imitates the cows and does mooing sounds.
And we see Dr. Faraday grousing in the background, but the focus of the scene is on Caroline. The ship is located. Faraday orders some choppers to go out that way. Max, meanwhile, is being a perv. Definitely a Paul Rubens character. Sorry, was that joke cheap? Watching David pee.
I find it funny. Max, in this scene, he's like, I don't know promise. I don't know privacy. He doesn't know any of these words, yet he claims to know thousands of languages.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that was just some words he didn't get to yet.
But it's like he doesn't understand the concepts, even.
Understanding language isn't necessarily...
all these words.
Understanding language isn't necessarily the same thing as understanding certain concepts.
But he's this super futuristic life. He's from this place where they have time travel and advanced space travel, and these concepts are that foreign.
I guess so.
I just looked it up, by the way. 20 miles above ground would put you into the stratosphere. It's the layer of the atmosphere where the ozone layer is found. And it's not considered outer space. That would be 62 miles.
Okay.
But it is outside of, our breathable air.
Right. So, I mean, that's probably where they were, I guess. Yeah.
Well, that is where they were. It's a matter of, was it depicted properly or not?
Gotcha.
I don't know. But...
Well, thank you. That's a real-time answer to my question during the course of this podcast. All right. Yeah. Basically... What Max gave David a bunch of star charts because they were experimenting whether certain brains could handle that information, and I guess the information got deleted from Max.
So he says when he was in the accident, he lost all of his navigational star charts. So that's why he needs the copies that are in David's brain. So basically the whole point of Max, and by the way... do you think Max is an alien life form, or is he just a robot computer designed by the aliens?
I think so, probably.
That he's not a life form himself?
that he's some type of life. Robotics,
but he's not organic life.
Yeah.
He's not the life form of the plant of Phelan.
Right, probably
he's
not.
technology built on Phelan.
Yeah, like some kind of advanced AI kind of deal.
So Phelan sends him out to do this mission, but they don't actually send a life form on the trip?
I guess not.
Is that where we're at?
Yeah, it's just kind of the same deal as like
so
sending
he's like
probes.
a rover.
Yeah,
he's like the Mars rover.
Yeah.
So his job is to go to different planets and collect samples of life, just so they can study them.
Yes.
And David was his sample, and it's like, well, your brain is just so much weaker that all these other slug-like creatures we're going to see. You're the most unadvanced life form of all of them, human.
Yes. David's annoyed that he took him away from his family for 8 years. Helicopters happen upon them. Max tells him to get back into the ship, but David won't do so unless he gets taken home. Max agrees and then asks for instructions. David is clueless and just says to get him out of there. And Dr. Faraday is once again foiled.
And so this is when Max introduces himself by name.
Yes.
They officially meet each other.
Yep. David gives the instruction of taking some place where they won't be found. Max takes them under the sea, much to David's fear and annoyance. As Max prepares the mind transfer info, David sees a bunch of creatures, one of which he holds, and the other which he ends up eating his NASA hat.
Yeah, so the little one, it's the Puck Marin from Binpuka Minor, and it's sad because he doesn't know his planet was destroyed, so he doesn't have a home to go back to.
That's sad.
Here's my question about that, though. If all the creatures are supposed to be brought back to the time they were taken from, except for David because his little brain can't handle it, why are we not returning him to his planet before it was destroyed? Is it an act of mercy because the planet will be destroyed?
Maybe.
Because the planet still exists at the time that you took him from it, and if your goal is to return them exactly where you took them from, you could return him there.
Maybe it is an act of mercy.
An act of mercy because we're like, well, we know that planet's going to be destroyed, so you're better off not going there.
Right.
So you had mentioned the two puppeteers already, Tim Blaney and Tony Urbano.
Yes.
They handle the characters of Garpunkel, Phenostoris, and Puck Marin. And then we have a voice actor here, Frank Welker, does the voices.
Frank Welker.
He does the voices of the Puck Marin, Phenosaurus, Garpunkel, and the voice of Bruiser. I don't recall Bruiser ever making sounds that we needed a person to voice, but apparently he did.
Gotcha.
David wishes he could take Puck Marin home with him.
Right. Dr. Faraday, meanwhile, gets a call from David's father, and he all but whistles and pretends nothing to see here. Faraday tells him that, doesn't tell him he's missing. And basically says, oh, yeah, he's fine, he's just busy, blah, blah, blah. And then he wants Caroline found because he thinks that he might know the location of where David might go.
Yeah, because they discovered she was the last person to see David before he got out of his room.
Max is ready to do the mind transferring thing, but despite telling David he's done this 0 times, David is convinced to do it. And from then on, he turns into a Paul Rubens character. Yeah,
we definitely hear Pee Wee Herman once he... So... Instead of just getting the star charts from David's mind, he gets everything that was in there. He hears every minute of David's life he now has in his memory banks. Every TV show he's ever watched, every insult he shared with his brother, it's all part of Max now.
Right, and they basically start trading insults back and forth, similar to his relationship with his younger brother, Jeff. Max sends him out of the ocean into space. David says they'd be home now if he was piloting, and in response to this, Max shuts down. The ship starts plummeting in a free fall.
NASA thinks they were shot down.
Right. They're actually watching this happen until Max points out the right button to turn things back on. And they notice as he doesn't crash, and then they all cheer. David gets the hang of it and argues on which way to go with Max.
Yeah, they want to get back to Fort Lauderdale, which is where David's family is. And I want to point out, we started off in NASA. We were in Florida.
Yeah.
The whole time.
Yes.
They haven't gone that far.
No.
But we don't know how to get back to Fort Lauderdale.
Because David doesn't know how to get back.
So what we're going to do is circumvent the entire world to get back to Florida, which is where we started.
Right.
I understand that they don't have the maps of how to get specifically to where they need to go. But shouldn't Max know to just reverse where you already came from?
Yes.
Like, doesn't that feel like something he should know how to do, is just go back to the general area we started at?
Right. That would make sense. Caroline goes to David's family and fills him in on his son being in a giant spaceship.
Yeah, because, NASA's not telling them anything.
Right.
So she's doing her part of, this is what he asked her to do, right?
Yes.
Was go tell my family. But this is all for naught, because we're not going to see her again. This is it. She's done.
Huh. Really? You don't see her again?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Or if, she might be, just hanging out outside, but,
right.
this is it.
Right.
For her. She doesn't do anything else.
Right. David's dad is pissed. A bunch of men approach the house. Caroline tries to get out, but is caught. The men tell the family that they are requested by Dr. Faraday to stay in their house. This sounds more like an order than a request, but...
Yeah, they're prisoners now in their own house because their son is on a spaceship.
Yes.
They should be... NASA's in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? So all they're doing is preventing this family from, going to the police or the FBI or
right.
whoever. NASA wants to contain this from any other branch of government.
Mm-hmm.
It's really shady stuff.
Yep. Max thinks he's arrived in Miami, but it's in fact Tokyo. This does not go unnoticed by the tourists who take pictures of the ship.
Yeah, so they change course, and in just a moment later, they're in San Francisco.
By the way, there's a scene in between that.
Is there?
Yep. We do see Caroline once again. Caroline is being accused by Dr. Faraday of hiding information. She denies it, and he basically says, "Look, Caroline, all I want is to get David back."
I don't recall seeing that scene.
Yeah, it was there.
Maybe it wasn't in the version I watched.
Maybe you watch it on Hulu.
I watched it on Hulu, and you watched it on Disney, but they're the same company. You'd think they'd have the same file.
You would think so.
But yeah, it seems like just a moment after leaving Tokyo, they end up in San Francisco. And my note is, at that speed, shouldn't they have been in Florida about 2 minutes later?
Right.
But we spend the entire rest of the movie trying to just get across the country from California to Florida.
And we go from day to night. Yeah, basically. So they find a car. They decide to hover over this car because it's playing some music.
That he says must be Twisted Sister that Carolyn was telling him about.
Is it Twisted Sister?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know 80s music.
You couldn't identify
Come
the music.
on.
All right.
But the kid in Mustang driving the car,
yep.
or I don't know if it's the driver, whichever one of the kids spoke, that's Kenneth Ian Davis. He was in Porky's 2 and The Big Bet.
8 credits for him in total. Max is introduced to music and wants to hear more, but David doesn't like opera. And he doesn't like the other music that comes up. But he does like the Beach Boys. They start dancing.
To I Get Around.
Yeah.
Which is one of my biggest memories of this movie.
Yes.
And I'm like, that was only 30 seconds of the movie.
Yep.
I felt like this was a much bigger scene than that.
Right. Didn't it take the entire movie? So Max is dancing, David's dancing, his new creature pal is dancing. And
Puck Marin.
And he's dancing with the controls too, which would really screw up where the ship is
which
going.
is the navigational system. Yet meanwhile, we see them traversing mountains,
right.
and we cross over Texas. It looks like you should be doing very fine-tuned navigating, and we're just let's just move to the beat of the music.
He's also stomping on a pedal, which is that a brake of some type?
I don't know.
But okay, so Dr. Faraday realizes that David is headed home. They end up stopping at some kind of market, gas station.
Before that, when we're with the family still, we have another newscast. The TV says that UFO sightings have happened on 2 continents, and NASA reports that it's currently going across the Gulf of Mexico. So the whole world's watching this unravel.
Right.
Newscast.
So much for keeping it contained.
Right. I mean, nobody knows there's a kid on it.
Right.
But newscaster number 2 is played by Jill Beach. And she is an actual Miami news anchor that they had do this. And she only has 2 other credits as such, as also as anchors.
So they're at the market, the gas station.
This is...
Rusty Pouch?
No.
Oh.
This is Al's Gator City.
Okay.
What's Rusty Pouch?
Rusty Pouch is the attendant.
Oh.
Yeah.
What?
The gas station attendant.
He's just credited as gas station... Oh, that's the actor's name.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Gas station attendant. The actor's name is Rusty Pouch.
Right.
It sure sounded like something made up, though, when you were just saying it.
Yeah. Only 3 credits, but 28 credits in the camera and electrical department.
Yes.
So basically, David asks this guy for some change to call his parents, and the big dude is basically just,
He's just, like, speechless.
Staring at the spaceship.
Yeah.
And then...
And Max is making fun of him, making fun of his weight.
And basically, while David is on the phone with Jeff, who is acting very shady... Oh, I know why he's that. Okay. There's some officials there.
Right. The people are there, and they don't want him to know that he's calling.
And... Yeah, this other family comes. The kids are playing. They ask to play with
so it's a mom, a dad, a son, and a daughter that come. Only 2 of them are credited. Tourist Man is the dad. Robert Goodman is the actor. He was in Revenge of the Nerds 2 and an episode of The New Leave It to Beaver. And then we have Tourist Child, which is the boy... played by Ryan Murray. This was his only credit. The girl is not credited, even though...
She speaks.
The 2 kids are having a whole conversation with each other.
Right.
So I'm really confused why the only tourist child is the male. And this girl doesn't appear to have any credits.
All right, so David talks to Jeff. He's asking for Jeff to give him a signal.
So he's like, I need to know how to get to the new house.
Right.
Maybe just give him the address. Would that help? And then he can look it up somehow.
Right, and I'm not sure how Jeff would even know when to light off the signal so David could see. But
so he's like, "Oh, do you know where such and such bridge is?" And and David's like, "No," and he's like, "Well, you'll have to give me a signal. Just give him the frickin' your address."
Yeah, he's old enough to know.
And then we've got a map. We can find it on the map.
Right.
But we have no idea where it is other than Fort Lauderdale.
Right. So, David gets back on the ship and takes off, much to the astonishment of the tourists and
Max says, "See you later, alligator."
Yep.
To Big Al, the alligator guy.
David and Max argue over directions, but he says he's the navigator.
Oh, another funny line before you move on. We're left with Big Al and the family.
Yeah.
And he finally speaks. Gas station attendant Big Al. He says to the family, he said he just wanted to phone home.
That's right. Got a little E.T. reference.
It's a little E.T. reference, yeah.
And the sign says only 56 miles to Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, so they're arguing if they should take Highway 95 or the Turnpike.
They're in a spaceship.
Why do you need to follow a road? Just freaking go there. You don't need to follow any road. And 58 miles should take you about 1 second. Based on the fact that we saw you go all the way around the globe.
Yep. Jeff, meanwhile, is going into action. Max flies along Miami Beach as Jeff looks for fireworks. Jeff ends up climbing on the roof. The actor, by the way, Matt Adler, was surprised that they actually let him do this, to be on the roof and shooting off these fireworks. And he mentioned that this day and age, he probably would not have been allowed to.
No, that's definitely stunt work.
Right. The police and Dr. Faraday are on the way to the Freeman house.
And none of these NASA official agent people see this kid leave the house and get on the roof with fireworks.
Right.
Like, this went completely under the radar of all these, official people.
Right. It's now nighttime, and Jeff finally he starts to try to set out the fireworks. One just flies off in the wrong direction, and then another. And then he finally gets a couple to go off in the right direction. David sees it. The parents come outside. I don't know how they're managing. They think they're going to hide this fact from anyone because they're not. They're acting very sus.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're going to set off this secret signal, but then what?
Right. The NASA officials are going to know where David is.
Yeah, and meanwhile, when David finally sees them, he's like, "Oh man, what are these guys doing here?"
Right.
Like, did you not expect them to check your house?
Right. I mean, he's 12 years old, so he can be forgiven for that. So David and Max think the journey is coming to an end. Max says taking him back to his own time is just too dangerous. David ends up spotting all the emergency vehicles. Max apologizes for getting him into the mess. The door opens. Dave comes down the steps. Faraday asks him to get away from the ship. And his parents also urge him to get out of the ship. I think they're trying to have him come to him and not Faraday, but I'm not sure.
Well, I know they all just want to get him out of the ship because they think,
right.
hey, you've been abducted by aliens,
right.
and that's bad and scary.
David apologizes and says he's sorry he doesn't belong here.
And then just gets back in the ship, and he tells Max to take him with him.
Yep.
And we just suddenly forget that we think this meant your brain was going to melt or whatever.
Max doesn't forget this.
Well, Max likes like it's too dangerous, but he's just going to do it anyway.
Right. David says this is not his home. His home was back in 1978. Max says if he attempts to take him back there, he might be vaporized. Now, up until this point, the stakes for this movie have been pretty low. Yeah. Like non-existent. But now we're getting to a point where the stakes are vaporization. Right. So we up the stakes to death, basically. Max says if that's his decision, he'll do it. And David says he needs to take this chance. So they do it. David asks if he will ever see him again. Max says he doesn't know because, he might be vaporized and he might die.
But he wishes him good luck.
Yeah, they say they'll miss each other. David says, let's get out of here. Max says compliant for the last time. And he says compliant Navigator. They fly through the crowds, go into space, go into some kind of vortex with electricity.
Yeah, and there's lightning or something.
Max is
his
glowing
little
red.
face screen has
water
bubbles,
yeah.
like something's boiling inside him.
Right.
So maybe he's the one about to vaporize. I don't know.
And then suddenly David wakes up in the woods.
In the ravine where he started, returned to the exact spot and time that he had left, which is what Max didn't think was possible, but apparently there were no complications.
I guess not.
And it was just cool, and he could have done that the whole time.
Right. So David goes over the tracks. He goes home. He goes to his door. And then his dad spots him and says, hey, David, over here. And nobody's concerned about where the heck he's been.
Because he's only been gone 2 minutes.
I mean, he had to walk a mile.
Sure.
So it's been longer than...
Well, I mean, they knew he had to walk a mile, though.
But Jeff beat him by, I'm assuming by a while.
We don't know how long.
Okay. So they're going to go out on a boat.
It's still the 4th of July. They're going to go on the boat to go get dinner, which was the plan.
Yep. And they're going to go off in this boat and light some fireworks off. David smiles at his family. They're looking much younger now. He tells his mom that he loves her. He pets Bruiser. Jeff asks if he's mad at him. And David tells him, no, I love you too. And everyone is surprised by this. Right. That's not how they typically treat each other. And then out of his backpack, we see a creature.
Puck Marin.
Jeff notices. I think the dog even notices.
Yeah.
The parents don't. They take off into the water.
And David just shushes his brother. Like, hey, we've got this secret now. We're going to take care of this alien creature together. And be good brothers now.
David looks up into the sky as the fireworks fill the sky. And then we hear Max laughing and saying, see you later, alligator.
See you later, Navigator.
Navigator, yeah. And that is where the movie ends.
That is where the movie ends. And I feel like this ending would have been a lot more impactful if they had come up with some different thing to do to fix the fact that he was going to be vaporized.
Okay.
If there was some oh wait, we can do this instead.
Right.
If there was something that solved the problem. Other than it might kill you, oh well, I guess it didn't. I feel like if there was just another step to that, a solution, that would have helped a lot.
Or have Caroline be in the boat next door and be like, oh, hey, aren't you in my class or something? Or, I don't know, something.
But yeah. I feel like it was just oh my gosh, this is so dangerous, the whole movie. We can't do this. And then they do it anyways, and it was fine.
Right. I kind of feel like I said, I think the best part of this movie is everything up until he gets onto the ship. After that, it's still a fun watch, but the movie loses a lot of steam. Because, the mystery is pretty much over at that point. What was carrying the movie is this whole mystery of what is going on here. Why did David end up 8 years in the future? And then once we solve that mystery and we're just like hanging out on a spaceship, driving around, singing songs, like the movie loses a lot of its momentum. It's still fun, but it's not quite the same movie as before, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of similar to Frequency, where, you know, we save the dad, and then it turns into this entirely different movie where we're chasing serial killers.
Right.
It's still a good movie, but it's not necessarily the same movie that we were watching before.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's an enjoyable watch. Even nowadays, it still kind of holds up. I don't think a kid watching this movie today would get the same kind of enjoyment.
They're not going to be entertained,
right?
The way that we were as kids,
right? Because right now it's like you know, you need a lot more to entertain a kid because shorter attention spans and such and such. But, yeah. I mean, this was a very novel movie back in its day, but
and it was a very good production.
One thing that they did say in the documentary is that some of the effects that, like the warping staircase, actually inspired some of what they did in Terminator 2 with the warping.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Do we have anything else to say?
I have a whole list of end credits to read.
All right, let's do it.
These are all the people I didn't know where to place in my notes. So bear with me. This might take a moment. Whew. NASA Technician Number 2 is played by Fritz Bronner. He was in 2 episodes of Beauty and the Beast and 5 episodes of Days of Our Lives. Technician number 1 is Giselle Elliott. This is her only credit. Technician number 2, Bridget Cleary. 6 total credits, including Tuck Everlasting. Technician number 3 was Michael Strano. This is his only credit. Scientist number 1 is Paris Bruckner, who is in Cape Fear and 5 episodes of Miami Vice. Scientist number 2 is Robin Peterson, 1 episode of Melrose Place and the film Pretty Woman. NASA officer played by Philip Holcher. He has 13 stunt credits and 10 animal wrangler credits.
Interesting.
Yeah. Control room guard number 1, Bob Strickland. This is his only acting credit. Control room guard number 2, Michael Brockman. He was the production manager on Dark Shadows. And as far as acting, he was in Road to Perdition. Radar technician number 1 is played by Louis Cataldo. His only other credit is 1 episode of Miami Vice. Radar technician number 2 is Debbie Casperson. Her only other credit is the 1983 film Stroker Ace. Lieutenant King, a named character, I couldn't figure out who they were. Lieutenant King was played by Chase Randolph, who was in 1 episode of Swamp Thing and 2 episodes of Superboy. Agent number 1 is played by John Archie. He was in 1 episode of Bird Notice and 4 episodes of Miami Vice. Agent number 2 is Tony Calvino, who was in 5 episodes of Grimm and the film Apollo 11. And Bixby is played by Bruce Lax, credited here as Bruce Lake. He has 5 total credits, including 2022's Stereopsychosis. And that is the list.
All right. Oh, do we have anything else to say?
I've said enough.
Me too. Happy 4th of July, everyone.
Happy 4th of July. Go eat some hot dogs and hamburgers.
Watch some fireworks.
Be safe with your fireworks, please. No. Do not shoot fireworks from the roof.
Right.
That's not advised.
Nope.
Don't get abducted by aliens unless you really want to.
You're just full of good advice right now.
I know.
Yeah. All right. We'd like to hear from you. What you think of this podcast? What you think of this movie? And Stacie can be reached at.
I can be reached on Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at TV and Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join the Core Productions Facebook page. You can buy something from the Core Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a copy. You can join the Core Productions membership group. 99 cents a month. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video as well as subscribe to the channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Core Productions signing off.